All right, looks like we are live. Welcome to Standing for Truth. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. My name is Donnie, and I am your host and moderator for this much anticipated debate between Kent Hovind and Mark Reid. We will be debating the important question, is there reasonable evidence for biological evolution? Both Kent and Mark here are no strangers to debates. They've both been here before, several times before, of course, and they've engaged each other in debate before as well. So why don't we, before we get into the opening statements, let's kind of break the ice, get to know these gentlemen a little bit, some brief introductions. Mark, been a little while since you've been here, so why don't we start with you? How you been? A little bit about yourself, a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, hi Donnie. It's good to be here, and hello to everybody out there. I'm a atheist. I started up a channel doing debate because I love debate and engaging people with differing opinions on topics that I like to discuss and run by. My channel's growing slowly, and it's been a lot of fun. My field is network engineering. I go to university to study distributed systems and things like that. So I do have sort of a base level knowledge of science communication from one of the units that I do in university. But my background really is in tech support and networking. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on. And yeah, back to you, Donnie.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction. I've been looking forward to this debate for a long time. For the audience, anybody who likes what they're hearing from the debaters and Mark, I've got the relevant links in the description box to their YouTube channel. So make sure to check those out. Kent, good to see you. Good to have you back. A little bit about yourself and a little bit about Dal.
Well, thank you. Yes, sir. My name is Kent Hovind. They call me Dr. Kent, the science gent. If the engineer can be a Bill Nye the Science Guy. Anyway, only I really am a science gent. We have a science center here, Lenox, Alabama. I taught high school math and science 15 years, junior high and high school. And I believe the Bible is absolutely true, scientifically accurate. The Bible says God made everything in 6 days. That's the only way it works. There are too many millions and millions of symbiotic relationships that could not possibly evolve separately. I take the position there is no evidence for biological evolution, depending on what you mean by the word, as far as changing to a different kind or creature of animal or plant. The Bible says 24 times in the first 7 chapters, they'll bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody has ever seen. Real science completely supports the Bible view. And evolution, we say, is the dumbest and most dangerous religion, and it's nothing but a religion. It's the most dangerous religion in the history of humanity. We cover all that in my video series. drdino.com is our website. YouTube channel, Kent Hovind Official. Send any questions or comments. We'll defend the Bible against all comers. Okay?
Okay, appreciate that, Kent. Thank you so much to our debaters tonight for the introductions. Again, the relevant links are linked in the description box of this video. So for the audience sake, real quick, format-wise, we are going to basically do what we've been doing. We're going to keep it free-flowing. We're going to have equally timed opening arguments where we can kind of lay the foundation for what's going to be discussed tonight. We'll give Mark Reid, let's say, up to 12 minutes. We'll give Kent the same amount of time. And then we're just going to get right into discussion. So we're going to take each point, discuss them one at a time, keeping it as equally timed as possible. Then, of course, we'll have quick closing statements followed by an audience question and answer period. So this is where we get you guys in the audience involved. Make sure if you have a question for the debaters, let's keep it on topic as much as possible. Again, the topic for tonight, is there reasonable evidence for biological evolution? Tag me at Standing for Truth or even at Donnie. That way I won't miss the question and we'll have a good Q&A period. So with that out of the way, Mark Reid, we're going to hand it over to you for your opening statement. If you need to share screen for some slides, no worries. Let me know and I can get that up for you as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Donnie. I'll just get that set up. And Kent's already debating in his description of himself. So he must be real desperate to get that information in. Let's see. I'll just allow this. And beautiful. Thank you so much, Donnie. I appreciate it. Now, hello, everybody. Good to speak to you, and thank you for giving me your time. I want to thank Donnie for hosting and Mr. Hovind for showing up to debate. I think this is a very important topic. And I would like to thank the audience for giving me your attention and letting me speak my case. Now, I want to make clear first off that I'm not a biologist or a geneticist, and I can only speak to my understanding of the subject. However, I have spoken to people with much more comprehensive understanding of myself, and I'll explain in a simplified way how we know for a fact that evolution is a true and correct theory. Now, first off, I'll be working off my previous debate. So if you didn't see that, definitely go back and watch it on Donnie's channel or my channel. I basically had an overview of endogenous retroviruses, and I'll go through a quick explanation on them, but I do want to expand on the subject as it is the single strongest evidence for evolution. So what is a retrovirus? A retrovirus is a virus that has RNA instead of DNA as its genetic material. It uses an enzyme called reverse transcriptase to make itself into DNA, and then another enzyme called integrase to cut the host DNA and insert its own DNA sequence in there. And you can see that integrase will make a series of cuts right there. And then it inserts itself. An example of retrovirus is the HIV virus. This makes the host replicate the virus when the host transcribes its own DNA sequence, it will replicate the virus. Now, the important part to focus on is the proviral insertion here. It's always got the same structure. It's made up of GAG, POL, and ENV genetic structures within it. And these, the really important part is these long terminal repeats, or LTR regions. These are sort of colloquially scars that it's made when that integrase cuts the DNA, so it makes these two sequences. So this is unique to retroviruses. It's the only time we see them. And we know that if those LTRs are there and the structure of the virus is the GAG, POL, ENV, we know for a fact that that was an insertion by a retrovirus. Now, that's retroviruses in general, but we're going to get to endogenous part. So when the DNA of the host is transcribed, the virus can be passed to other members of the species. This is called horizontal transmission. When the virus invades other cells, and endogenization can only begin when it gets into the germline, or the egg or sperm, a germ cell. Just say, for instance, the egg gets infected and it starts doubling 2, 4, 8, 16 cells, and that's how it grows into an embryo. The DNA of the viral element that's been infected into the egg is copied into every single cell in that organism. And then after that happens, if it does get copied to every cell, it will be passed down generations. So for a period of time, the retrovirus can be endogenized, but not necessarily fixed in a population. So for instance, some organisms may have some descendants with the endogenous retrovirus and some not. When it gets fixed, and I'll talk about that next, is when it gets all the population will have that EVE, or endogenous viral element, in its own DNA. Now, mutations can happen anywhere in the genome, and if the mutation happens somewhere in the viral element of the DNA, that virus can be turned off or even mutated to be beneficial to the organism. I'll cover this a little later when talking about placental mammals, but I want to describe the way we can tell how different species of organisms branched off before or after the germline had the retrovirus integrate in their DNA. These three species of rabbits, A and B, have the same site or location in their DNA, along with the LTR, or long terminal repeats, or the scars that the integrase made, in exactly the same place in their DNA, along with the sections GAG, ENV, POL of the retrovirus. There may well be slightly different mutations in the viral DNA element, but this is where we can tell that the integration happened because this species, species C, does not have the viral element in it, whereas these two species do. So we know that this species must have split off before that viral element went into the DNA. And that's how we can tell when things have diverged. So this is a breakdown of a species tree. We have 2 ERVs showing how we can tell when it occurs. It's sort of an extrapolation on the previous slide. So if ERV1 is in A, B, and C, and ERV2 is only in species A and B, we know for a fact that ERV1 was integrated before C diverged, and ERV2 integrated after it diverged. The bottom graphic is actually showing how the viruses evolve, because don't forget, mutation can happen anywhere in the genome, and that includes in the retrovirus elements inside the cell. So not only do the species organisms evolve that have these retrovirus elements, the retrovirus elements themselves evolve with mutations. And that's how we get non-beneficial ERVs and even ERVs that have been turned beneficial. Now, you probably can't see this very well. It's really just showing the few of the clades, and this is just a few of them. There are tons of these, of the retroviral mutations that we are currently tracking. Some of them are common to all animals, so we can start to tell when and where the mutations happened. If 2 organisms have the mutation version of a retrovirus and another does not, then that mutation must have happened after 2 species with the same mutation split off from the one without a mutation. Take, for instance, here, the gamma retrovirus. And this is not a tree of organisms. This is a tree of the retroviruses. This group of retroviral elements only exists in mammals, and only in mammals. So we know that that retrovirus grouping had to occur after mammals had split off. There is no other way it could have got there. We found that we already knew this phylogenetic tree existed before we even found ERVs. So through fossil records, physiology, comparative anatomy, genetic sequences, embryology, geographical distribution. We already knew that there was this phylogenetic tree. What was interesting is that sort of ERVs were found and slotted perfectly into our understanding of the phylogenetic tree. Perfectly. And my question for Mr. Hovind would be, how do these retroviruses back up the phylogenetic tree that already existed? Why do they do this? And I will expect an answer from him. So let's focus on ERVs of our nearest neighbors, primates. Now, all of this looks confusing. It is. I get that. It's the kind of thing we look at and we go, I can't understand any of this. I have studied this for a while and I don't understand all of this. And I've got to admit that. Average people, this chart is not for them. It is for people with a high advanced degree in genetics and retroviral infection specialized in retroviral infection research. I want to mention this because Kent will jump on things like the next slide and try to make it seem like these things are simple. They're this is, you believe in this diagram. It's like, no, that's a simplified diagram. This is the kind of stuff that the experts look at. I'm just simply showing you this slide to show that things are never as simple as some people make out. And they're doing it to sort of say, hey, look at this basic thing. You can't possibly, no, it's complicated. So let's simplify it. So this is a basic breakdown of the previous chart and tracking of how ERVs would work. Just like basic comparison of organisms, we can find ERVs that separate primates into this group using exactly the same logic that I outlined previously. Now, keep in mind, there are over 8,000 separate ERVs in mammals alone, and about 5 to 8% of humans' DNA is made up of retroviral fragments, some which have been mutated to be inactive or actually beneficial. So there's this massive list of retroviral segment information that we can draw upon and untangle which organisms diverged from which based upon which ERV each species possesses. But not only which ERV each species has, but what mutations we can track through the ERV target site, where the retrovirus was inserted into the genetic code. And let's zoom out a bit and see at mammals, fishes, and reptiles. So I want to point this out. One of the oldest ones is HERV-S/L, and HERV stands for human endogenous retrovirus. Now, it's called that because we found it in humans. That's actually present in all primates and fish and other mammals and even reptiles. That's why it's old, because it was entered the genetic line way before it got to us. I want to compare that to well, let's go forward a bit. And the HERV-FH and HERV-FRD, they are not present in fish, other mammals and reptiles, but they are in all primates, including prosimians, which is lemurs, tarsiers, and the slow loris. So for some reason, this one is present in all of those animals, and these ones are only present in primates. And I'll get Mr. Hovind to explain why that is under his understanding. Now, I want to contrast this against HML2, this one up here. This is unique to humans. This is only found in humans, not found in any of the other apes, anywhere else in the animal kingdom, anywhere else at all. This tells us that HML2 virus insert itself and fixed in the human genome after humans had diverged from chimpanzees and the human lineage. This is looking at the development of the placental mammals and the co-option of retroviral elements, or the turning them beneficial to allow mammals to fuse a yolk sac to form a placenta. All of these animals are mammals, but we have found some differences in the ERV elements in their DNA. We already know that humans and mice are placental. However, marsupials have a different trick, and their physiology is sophisticated, and it extends lactation that allows them to exchange, that they don't have the umbilical cord and exchange it for a teat and a sort of pouch structure. And it's interesting to note that they lack the synthesin 1 and 2, or A and B, that the eutherians have. So they have a different system. And it's also interesting to note that the SIRH family of endogenous retroviruses are present in all the placental mammals, but it's not present in monotremes, which are mammals, but they're not placental. Now, we know that this SIRH family is responsible for assisting in the evolution of the placenta. And the fact that the platypus and echidna do not have this ERV means that they cannot form a placenta. So this explains the evolution of the placenta in placental mammals, and it explains the lack of a placenta in the monotremes. So I'd just like to mention the fields that evolution is used in practice. Not a lot is said about this subject. Genetics companies hire graduates with a deep understanding of evolutionary theory, and this is not a coincidence or a fluke or a conspiracy. The evolutionary theory has been used to understand how organisms change, and this is put into practical use in the lab all the time. The fact that nested hierarchy of the phylogenetic tree, the way that it spreads out and diversifies, that's been around since 1866, over 150 years before we even knew about DNA. 87 years later, DNA started to find similarities with DNA lined up exactly as the phylogenetic tree predicted. Then ERVs were... Thank you. Then ERVs were first discovered in 1980, and we could see that they formed exactly the same nested hierarchy, the phylogenetic tree, putting the final nail in the evolution denier's coffin, and showing us that organisms had a common ancestry that diverged. And not only that, but in the last 10 years, we have tracked mutations within the endogenous retrovirus elements to allow us to see exactly where each species is placed in the nested hierarchy. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for that opening presentation. That was 15 minutes. And
sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. That's okay. Couple topics for us to discuss, and we're going to hand it over to Kent for equal time. Kent, whenever you're ready, you have up to 15 minutes as well. And then we'll go from there. Kent, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much. He's hanging an awful lot of weight on one little tiny nail, the ERVs. We'll talk about that. So these evolutionists want so badly for the humans to be related to the birds and to the reptiles and to the ladybugs. They have these family trees that they put in all the textbooks, and they make them all connected to a protozoa or an amoeba or a single-celled creature of some kind. This biology textbook says all the many forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor. This is pure propaganda. This is not science, okay? Found in a population of primitive unicellular organisms. There is no such thing as a primitive unicellular organism. There are unicellular organisms, 20,000 different kinds of them. None of them are primitive. Any single-celled creature is more complex than New York City. Well, let's get a better example. More complex than the space shuttle, okay? It's crazy to call anything a primitive unicellular organism. And then this textbook admits no traces of those events remain. There is no evidence whatsoever for these family trees. Saying the ERVs, we'll get into that in a minute, evidence is pure propaganda and wishful thinking. They connect everything back to a common ancestor. They got the sharks going back, and the ferns, and the starfish, and the octopus having a common ancestor. Octopus always make baby octopus, without exception. There are no examples where anybody's ever seen anything other than that. But they want to teach the kids the protozoa, the first true cell, slowly, that's the secret, slowly, formed into a biology teacher. This is propaganda. Then the charts like he was using tonight, saying that, oh yeah, we're related to primates and all that stuff. Well, you may be, I'm certainly not. Mary Leakey said, those trees of life with the branches of our ancestors are a lot of nonsense. This one says, you are a primate. Aaron Ra gets in everybody's face, says, you are a monkey. No, you may be, Mr. Nelson. I am not, okay? So they make these family trees, and it's absolute guesswork. ERVs is not going to help. But this is the family tree. They've already started with the assumption this is true. Now, how do we prove it's true? And so when they see ERVs, they try to fit it into this crazy family tree, which does not exist anywhere. But they draw lines on paper, connecting them all. So let's talk about ERVs, since that's where he wants to go tonight. What are ERVs? Well, the human genetic code, we have 46 chromosomes. A chromosome contains all the information to make everything about you. And it's like if you took a long ladder, a really long ladder, and twisted it around and around and around, the rungs of the ladder are the base pairs. A DNA molecule will have 50 million to 250 million rungs on the ladder. You really think that happened by chance? Really? Nobody wrote that code. The code's incredible. How much of the human genome is retroviral sequences? Human endogenous retroviruses, HERV, and our DNA sequences within human chromosomes. 8% of the human genome is made of these ERVs. And you guys think that that's evidence for evolution. There's a great article on ICR.org, Institute for Creation Research.org. Viral genome hits the trash. I agree. Evolutionists have long claimed the human chromosomes were infected with many different viruses over millions of years, which then multiplied in the genome, exactly what Mark shared tonight. Then, as some of these sections of virus-like DNA were shown to be functional, it's not a virus, it's functional, it's necessary, it's part of the code. Yeah. Evolutionists claimed they had become tamed, like the domesticated wild animals. So first they thought they were viruses and dangerous, but they're all inserted. Now they said, oh no, there's a function for them. Oh, well, they've been tamed over millions of years. They're going to keep their religion, no matter, you can't pick on their religion without them getting angry at you, okay? When virus-like DNA were first discovered, it was thought the majority of them would prove to be junk. Till now, they claim they're endogenous retroviruses as if it's something that's bad. A DNA sequence called endogenous retrovirus are abundant in mammal genomes. The sequence initially got their name because they showed strong sequence similarity to known viruses. Then the evolutionists proclaimed the animal genomes evolved to their present state. Often repeated infection with viruses initially deemed part of the organism's junk DNA. Well, they've discovered it's not junk at all. It's part of the code, necessary. As research on ERVs progressed, it became apparent that many of these genomic features are not junk, but important for the mammal's survival, such as placental development, like he said. You understand how complex a placenta is? To say some animals have it, some don't, no big deal, therefore they're related or not related. A placenta is incredibly complicated. That's how the baby gets his food from the mother and gets rid of the waste and exchanges gases. it breathes through that little tube and through the placenta. It's incredibly complicated. And for you to say it just happened by chance is absolute dreaming, okay? Nightmare, actually. Many other ERVs are found to be specifically regulated by cell type. These ERVs contain special sequences that act like genetic switches by binding regulatory proteins that control the genes. New study shows many other ERVs across the genome play key roles in controlling immune responses. So without them, you don't get the immunization or the immune response that you need. This is dreaming to say that this is part of the design, Mark. This isn't proof for evolution. It was designed that way. Let's see. More specifically, new research shows ERVs regulate genes that produce pro-inflammatory signaling molecules released upon the infection. This crucial system is called the innate immune response. And genes regulated by ERVs associated with this biological network are called innate immunity factors. So they're not junk DNA. They're not evidence for evolution. They're designed to do what they do. Let's see. Obviously, a mammal would get sick and have difficulty surviving without ERVs regulating their genome. This author said, who's probably the expert on it, in a recent article, I go into more detail about ERVs and why the evolutionary story is completely backwards when it comes to explaining their presence in the genome. These elements are clearly part of the original created genomic blueprint for each creature. Randy, are there any programs that have automatic spell check? I notice as I'm typing sometimes, it changes the word for me.
Yeah, I mean, Chris was just arguing about that very thing.
Right. These ERVs.
Is there 3 people in this debate, or
what now?
Is there 3 people in this debate? Can we keep it just to you, Mr. Hovind?
Oh, I'm all you need. Trust me. Okay, I can handle it. Yes, I'm just asking. He's my computer expert. It was a computer question about spell check. If that bothers you, too bad. Okay, let's see. Let's see. They were derived from human and animal ERVs only after God cursed the creation for man's sin. This began a process of degeneration and corruption. Yet his amazing handiwork is still seen in fully functional genomes. Retroviral promoters in the human genome. Back in 2008, it was demonstrated these aren't junk DNA. These aren't evidence for evolution. Our analysis revealed retroviral sequence in the human genome encode tens of thousands of active promoters. Wow. The data suggests ERVs may regulate human transcription on a large scale. This is 2008, Mark. Time to get up to speed on your science, okay? ERVs is not evidence for evolution. Let's see, 2014. Scientists identify new beneficial function of endogenous retroviruses. They have a function. Well, look at that, 2014. They play a critical role in the body's immune defense against common bacteria and viral pathogens. Okay, 2021. And the virology, is it off this website or magazine? I forgot to look. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Switching sides. How endogenous retroviruses protect us from viral infections. Long regarded as junk DNA or genomic dark matter, endogenous retroviruses have turned out to represent important components in the antiviral immune response. So you are simply mistaken or way behind on your science to think ERVs are any help for evolution theory. ERVs have a function, okay? Endogenous retroviruses function as gene expression regulatory elements during mammalian pre-implantation embryo development. They've known this for quite a while. What are endogenous retroviruses good for? They play an active role in shaping genomes. Most studies in this area focused on genomes of human and higher primates, but other vertebrates like mice and sheep also have been studied in depth. So the endogenous retrovirus, let's see, this is ScienceDirect.com. Endogenous retrovirus promote homeostatic and inflammatory responses. So they do have a function. HERVs, new role in cancer, from accused perpetrators to cheerful protectors. So I'm sorry, you are simply mistaken about ERVs. They are not evidence for evolution at all. But you guys want so desperately to talk about how the chromosomes and the differences in the chromosome, let me get to a different one here, are somehow evidence that humans and apes are related. Let's see, right here. There. No. Sorry about that. Get the link set up there. Okay. I got a ton of stuff on human and chimp differences if you'd like to know more on that. But the ERVs you claim are evidence for evolution. They are not. 50 million to 300 million base pairs in a chromosome. We have 23 chromosomes. The apes, let's see, differences between apes and humans. Cranial capacity of the apes, 400 to 600. Humans, 1400 to 1500 cc. Apes have a slanting forehead and a flat nose. Humans have a high forehead and an elevated nose. Apes have heavy and protruding eyebrow ridges. Humans have inconspicuous eyebrow ridges, generally. Few have more than that. So the brain size is very different. The forehead is very different. The nose is different. The chin is different. The eyebrow ridge is different. The gap in the teeth is different. Let's see. Apes have longer arms as compared to their legs that can reach below their knees. I don't know of a human who can do that, a normally equipped human. Humans have an S-shaped spine. Chimps or monkeys have a C-shaped spine. Apes have opposable helix. They can grab a branch with their big toe on one side. Try that. Okay, pick a low branch when you practice on that. You can't do that. Their feet are very different, okay? Humans have numerous languages to communicate. Apes don't do that, okay? Quadrupedal locomotion. They walk moving all four. Apes do. Humans walk on just two. Humans can make tools. Show me any ape that makes anything similar to what the humans have done, like making a computer, okay? The volume of the brain is less. Apes have large jaws. Humans have small jaws. Oh, okay. Apes have a narrow pelvic girdle. Humans have a broad and flattened pelvic girdle. Apes have a V-shaped dental arch, the shape of their teeth. They lead chiefly arboreal, mean up on the trees. They live in the trees generally. Humans live generally on the ground. They walk semi-erect on the outer edges of their feet and knuckles of their hand. Humans don't walk like that normally. Forelimbs are comparatively larger than hind limbs. The head is balanced on heavy shoulders and is buried. The foramen and magnum in their head are directed backward. That's where the spine comes through into the skull, okay? The apes is very different than a human. Now, if you wish to claim you're related to an ape because of endogenous retroviruses, there are billions of differences between these creatures. Billions, okay? Forelimbs are larger. Let's see. Neck muscles are attached to the back of the brain. In humans, neck muscles are basically attached below the brain box. Oh, okay. The face protruding and brow ridges are prominent. The face is somewhat flat and brow ridges are inconspicuous. The differences are magnitude. Finding a few little similarities in ERVs because they both do the same function in the humans and the apes, okay? Not because they evolved and you can draw a line on paper and make up a number that happened 52 million years ago. That is pure propaganda, okay? Physical differences between apes and humans: skull, the way the muscles attach to the back. The sternocleidomastoid muscle attaches to the back of the head. The first vertebrae, the occipital bun, everything is different about these creatures. The same designer made them both. That's why there are any similarities. We're not related to monks or apes or gibbons or baboons or chimpanzees. No, they're designed. Jaws are strong with well-marked, should be chin. Whoever did this article misspelled it. I didn't type it, okay? Jaws are small with a prominent chin. Apes don't show any interest in the spiritual world. They never pray or thank God for his creation. Some humans also don't show any interest in the spiritual world. They never pray or thank God for his creation either. I do, okay? You want to draw lines on paper and claim you're related to an ape, you just make whatever claim you want. This is not science. This is propaganda. This is religion 101. You can believe you're related to a gorilla and a gibbon if you want. That's not science. All we've ever seen, well, let me show you here. Chimpanzees make baby chimpanzees. Nobody's ever seen an exception to that. Never. But if you wish to imagine that it happened long ago and far away, that's outside the realm of science. That's back in SpongeBob world. You can believe that if you'd like, but it's not science, Mark. And ERVs are no help to you. They have a function. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Kent, for that opening statement. That concludes the opening arguments from our debaters tonight, Mark Reid and Dr. Dino. So what we're going to do now is move into the open discussion. Since Kent just ended with his opening statement between, looks like about 13 and 15 minutes. So we'll toss a minute into the open discussion. Mark, we're going to let you pick the first topic, ask the first question, however you'd like to basically start this discussion portion. The floor is yours,
Fantastic. Gentlemen. Yeah, thank you so much, Donnie. I'd just like to mention this is a debate between you and I, Kent. Look, if you need someone to hold your hand, pick another debate, where maybe you've got a few people doing that. So this is hilarious. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This whole thing of propaganda and religion, if the theory of evolution is propaganda and religion, so is the theory of gravity, so is germ theory of disease. But firstly, I'd like to share my screen just quickly, because I do want to have a look at the papers that Kent brought up. He was so generous to cite a couple of them. So let's have a look at a couple of the papers, shall we? Now, this is one of Kent's references, retroviral promoters in the human genome. You saw it earlier where he picked out a thing saying that they were useful. Can I just point out the abundance of these so-called endogenous retroviral sequences testifies to the extent that human evolution has been shaped by successive waves of viral invasion. So it's a novel strategy to use a paper that disagrees with you in a debate, Kent, but you know, you're brave, you're very brave. Now, this is the other one, switching sides, how endogenous retrovirus protect us from viral infections. We present important principles underlying the antiviral activities of ERVs and illustrate how the host cell has co-opted fossils or used fossils of possibly once harmful retroviruses to limit the spread of current viral pathogens. So again, you've got a bold strategy using papers that disagree with you, Kent, but you are citing papers that clearly state you are 100% wrong. And I already pointed this out, that they are co-opted. And your sources agree with me that they are co-opted. So I don't know why you are suddenly pretending, oh, it's propaganda, it's some sort of, you know, mad conspiracy that you've dreamt up in your own mind. But even the papers that you are showing us agree with me.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kent. Equal time.
Would you put them back up? Let me make my comment. Go ahead and highlight what you highlighted a minute ago. And I'll show you, which you probably have never seen, that you have been brainwashed by this stuff. Look at the way they word things.
Okay.
Put it back up, Mark.
Yeah, give me a sec.
Put it back up.
No worries. Which one? The first one that I showed?
Sure. Either one.
Yeah, sure.
The abundance of these so-called endogenous retrovirus sequences testifies to the extent that human evolution has been shaped by successive waves of viral invasion. Tell me how that shows scientifically that there's a relationship. It shows no such thing. The author has to say words like this to get his paper published in peer-reviewed journals, because if you don't believe in evolution, you don't get published. There's no science behind that statement. He just said, look at the abundance of these retrovirus sequences. Okay, I agree, there's a lot of them. And therefore, he just makes a statement that testifies to the extent that human evolution has been shaped. You don't know that. You don't know any such thing. It could easily be that they're all designed to do what they do. This is propaganda. You don't spot it. I know you don't want to spot it, because the only alternative is there might be a God. You might be accountable for your life. Put the second one up, please, Mark.
Sure. I'll just find out where there.
We present important principles underlying the antiviral activities of ERVs and illustrate how the host cell has co-opted fossils. In other words, it brought in these antique things that weren't necessary anymore, of possibly once harmful retroviruses. Do you understand how this is pure propaganda? Listen to what they're saying. They're saying they've got them, so it must have happened this way. It must have co-opted these fossil retroviruses. That's not science. This is propaganda. You've been brainwashed, Mark. I'm trying to help you. Hello. This isn't science. I don't know. Just because it's published in a science paper by a science guy who has a degree behind his name, look at what he said. He just made up a story. They just must have co-opted it. That's not. Where's the evidence for that? The evidence is they're there. The evidence is they work. That's the evidence. To say they must have co-opted it is not science. Go ahead.
Okay, so for the first part, these are your citations, Kent. This is the stuff that you presented. So you're basically saying, hey, I presented this stuff, but I want you to prove true the stuff that I presented. Do you know how insane that sounds? I'm really sorry, but like that's insane. No, Kent, this is my time.
Slap and run.
No, Kent, no, bad Kent, sit. Now this is basically the introduction to the paper.
Okay, let me jump. Okay, guys, let's do this.
He wants to make a statement, slap, and then run on to a new topic. One topic at a time, Mark. Let's answer that one.
You asked me to show a relationship. This is what you asked me, and I'm going on to do that. What are you talking about? You brought up showing the relationship
you just made.
No, Kent, you're not steamrolling through this one, mate. So this is basically the introduction for these papers. Can I please talk?
I'm going to jump in real quick, just so.
No. You're not getting the moderator to hold your hand through this, Kent.
I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I'm going to make a judgment call. So what we'll do?
Shut off his mic when it's my turn. Shut off mine when it's his turn. But one topic at a time. He brought up a topic and wants to slap me and then run on to the next topic. No.
I'm talking about the same papers you are, Kent. What are you talking about?
Okay, guys, I'm going to mute both your mics right now, and I'm going to make a judgment call as the moderator, okay? So what we'll do is whatever comment that Mark made, make a note of it, Kent. Mark, you continue your thoughts, take your uninterrupted time. When you're done, we'll hand it back to Kent. Kent, with your uninterrupted time, you can respond to Mark's first comment and then also whatever precedes it. So here we go. I'll only unmute Mark. And Mark, whenever you're ready, go ahead, and then we'll give Kent equal time.
Mr. Hovind, there's no reason to interrupt people because you don't like what they're saying. There's no reason for that. So this is just the introduction. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever read a scientific paper, but the introduction or the abstract sort of presents what they have found. So they go on to list their methodology for the scientific study and their results. See, you don't seem to understand that there's an entire paper after. The introduction just says their results, and then they reference all of the other places they're getting information. So, and again, in this one, that's just the introduction. All of this, they point out how it's done. They show their work. They show how they actually analyzed all of these things and came to the conclusions they are. I know that you don't really have an understanding of science and don't understand this stuff, but they, like, look at this paper. They have gone through all of it. Now, the problem is that you don't understand it. And quite frankly, this is beyond my level of understanding as well. But there are people that do understand this and why they came to the conclusions they came to. But what's absolutely hilarious is this is the papers that you brought up, that you want me to explain to you when you cited the papers. It clearly shows that you don't understand the papers, because you never would have brought them up if you understood what they actually said.
Okay, thank you for the response, Mark. What we'll do now is hand it over to Kent. We'll have Mark muted for now, and Kent, take as much time as you need to respond to the various points made. Go ahead.
Okay. You started the whole debate tonight, and your whole presentation, 15 minutes, was about ERVs. You chose this topic. I showed you clearly that most scientists who understand this are saying they do have a function. They've known this for 15 years now. Wow. They have a function, a beneficial function. The fact that somebody says, wow, we have the same beneficial function as the monkeys do, doesn't prove a common relationship between the monkeys and the humans. It could be a common need, a common designer. We have the same environment we live in. We face the same problems in life. So they do have a function. In your mind, they're evidence for evolution. And in your mind, they were co-opted or brought in to serve this function. I would say no. It looks like they were designed to take this function. I agree the papers can be complicated to read. I have a better understanding of science than you do, okay? But if you want to debate on that, you're supposed to be presenting tonight the evidence for evolution. I'm showing ERVs are not evidence for evolution. They're evidence that we need them in the code. Just like I said, certain computer programs have things automatically that does spell check for you. Whoa, that's pretty cool. I think some of the lines of code for Microsoft PowerPoint are identical to the lines of code for Microsoft Word. Identical lines. There might even be the same mistakes get copied into a code. Has Microsoft ever built a program that had a mistake in it and they used it in another program? Even if it were mistakes, that's not proof of evolution. It still could be design. Poor design can still be design. But I don't think it is poor design. I think the ERVs serve a function. We are living in a fallen world, and we are copies off of copies off of copies off of copies, thousands of times of great-great-great-great-grandpa Adam. And the fact that we can still sit and breathe and talk is amazing. The code is complex, and I choose to give God the glory for the amazing complex code that he made. You choose to ignore the God who designed it all. That's your choice for now. So I think you started this by talking about ERVs. So I simply responded with my response saying, we could have talked about something else. How many topics do I have at the beginning here? You want to talk about the definitions of evolution, the definition of science? I'm ready for anything you got to throw at me. You chose ERVs, Mark. Don't blame me. I'm showing you they have a function. You're making up a tree saying, well, this scientist believes they're related. He can believe what he wants. That doesn't make it true that this guy believes it. The fact is they're complicated and they work. That's the fact. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that response there, Kent. Mark, we'll hand it over to you, and now
Thank
you have
you.
your uninterrupted response.
So it shows the dishonesty of Mr. Hovind here when he basically says, well, scientists are just saying that there is a function. No. As I clearly pointed out in his citation, his paper that he's referencing, by the way, that they are saying that the function has been co-opted from harmful viruses. It said that specifically, and he wants to ignore that part because it doesn't fit with his narrative that God did everything. He's talking about Microsoft code, errors in the code. Look, errors in the code means that usually it stops working. That is not the case with genetic code. It is a different thing than computer code. He's got no idea what he's talking about there either. Computer code is algorithmic, DNA is not. He's got no idea there. So what I'd like to ask then, and look, there's no conspiracy here. There's no, conspiracy theory, flat earth kind of thing that all these people are lying about what they've discovered. As my last slide said, there's over 500,000 papers on evolution, and all of them have confirmed it. So what I want to ask Kent is, how did the HERV-FD get into all the primates and none of the other animals? And how did the long terminal repeats, which show that integrase cut the genetic sequence, how did that get there? That's my question. Okay,
we'll hand it back to Kent. Go ahead, Kent, take your time.
That was two questions. What was the first one? And we'll talk about that one first. How did the ERVs get into the code of both of them? Is that what your question?
It's HERV F/D. It's a specific HERV which is present in all primates, including tarsiers and slow loris and prosimians, but not in any other animal.
I would say those animals must need that because it does serve a function. The ERVs are not, they serve a regulatory function. So maybe the starfish don't need that function that we do. I don't know. But that's not proof of relationship. In your mind, case closed, got to be related. We evolved from a monkey. Okay. In my mind, wait a minute, stop and research that a little more. It's not proof of relationship, proof of a common creator, and they both have the same needs. I bet you'll find a lot of animals have lungs because we all need to breathe air. Yeah, we're designed to breathe air. So I bet you'll find a lot of animals in the water have gills. They're designed to breathe underwater. Not a relationship. So it's a common need. We need bones to be able to stand up, walk around, because we all suffer under the effects of gravity. So it's not evidence for a common ancestor like you want it to be. And you said it shows my dishonesty. I resent that remark, obviously. I didn't do anything dishonest. I'm being very clear. The ERVs are functional. They weren't co-opted and resurrected to serve a new function. So that I don't remember your chart. I'll look at your chart later when I review this video. But I could say just as much, look, we've got this similar ERV because we have the same designer and the same need. Go ahead.
Okay, the reason why I said you're dishonest is because you said scientists are saying that there is a function, and that's not what they are saying. They are saying that the function has been co-opted from harmful viruses, and I pointed that out in the paper directly to you. So it's amazing that you keep saying it. You didn't answer my second question. What function does the long terminal repeats serve that are only made when integrase makes a cut in the genetic sequence of an organism? Why is that there? How did that get there?
Oh, I don't know. I would say put in there for a need. You might want to go to icr.org. They've got extensive articles on this topic, ERVs, and read what they have to say. I'm sure somebody's answered that question. That's not the focus of my attention. I didn't know you were going to bring that up tonight. If I had, I would have been more prepared for that one. I didn't know. I can bring up some stuff you're not prepared for either if you'd like. But the ERVs do serve a function. They're all saying that. They regulatory elements during mammalian pre-implantation embryo development. Okay, so they're functional. They shape the genomes. Let's see. They promote homeostatic and inflammatory responses. So you said, let's see, the function has been co-opted. That is religion. You don't know that. You believe that, and you're going to try to slip that in and make the students think that's part of science. Look at this. This function has been co-opted. No. Was the plastic co-opted into this pen? No, it was designed to be an ink pen. So I'd say you have not proven your point at all. The topic of the debate tonight is where's the biological evidence for biological evolution? You've not given any. You believe it. You've shown your religion, which is fine. Keep it.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, it's amazing that you claim to know more than the scientists working on here, but you don't know a simple question of how those cuts got into the genetic sequence. Now, the parsimonious explanation is that integrase back in when we had a common ancestor made that cut, and those long terminal repeats were copied into the genetic sequence and then passed vertically down to their descendants. And that is the most reasonable explanation. But you want to go to, well, I don't know, I don't care, don't understand, don't really care. And that's fine. You can do that. But that's just your religious bias. And evolution isn't a religion any more than theory of gravity is a religion, or germ theory of disease is a religion. It's just this particular one you have a problem with, Mr. Hovind. That's why you want to say it doesn't exist. And the fact that you have no answer for this and don't really care that you don't have an answer is really disturbing. I would hope that somebody would have an answer for this. Now, the other thing that you sort of said was, oh, they all have a function.
Johnny,
Excuse me. They all have a function, but that's not true. Some of them have been deactivated and do not have a function, and you haven't explained those ones.
Okay, let's wrap it up there. Kent, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, he goes off to another topic right away. Slap and run. You said, I don't know and I don't care, and I didn't give an answer. Look at me. I did give an answer. I think they were designed. You don't like that answer. You ignore that answer. You said, how did they get there? I answered your question. Don't say I didn't answer and was afraid to and didn't know and didn't care. I care very much. I think it was designed and it works really good. They all have a function. And to say that some have been deactivated, well, then they were active. I bet some older people have parts that don't work on their body anymore. It doesn't mean it's not designed. Some people have cars. Things don't work anymore on their car. What's that prove? It was still designed. Originally, it worked. So to become deactivated is not evidence for evolution. It's evidence it used to be I had a function. It was designed. So I gave my answer. I'll give it to you again. Maybe you'll get it this time. I think they were all designed, and they worked fine. They may be. We now are a copy off a copy off a copy off a copy, and maybe losing some. Degeneration is taking place, but that's not evolution. That's the opposite of evolution. Losing functions is not evolution. I gave my answer, so don't say I didn't, and I don't know and I don't care. I do know and I do care, and I gave an answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is what Kent is claiming right now, that a designer not only put the ERV sequence in there, he made it look like integrase made a cut in the DNA and hence the long terminal repeats on either end of the viral sequence. And then that was all part of it. And don't forget, the viral elements don't need the long terminal repeats. They're not duplicated when the virus, like when a normal retrovirus copies itself, it's not duplicated. That is only made when the virus makes a cut in the DNA. So basically, his designer put that there to make us think that the genetic sequence had a cut in it for some reason, and then he goes on to say, oh well, they were active at one point. Yeah, Kent, they were active as viruses. Like, what part of this don't you understand? That they were viruses that were incredibly detrimental, and through mutation they deactivated. And it brings me to the really good point. You have not addressed at all the reason why we can track these mutations through the retroviral elements, and we can see where they are changing over time. You haven't addressed that in the slightest. And you haven't addressed why say the gamma retroviruses are only exist in animals, and we can track down the animals through those mutations and see where they split off from one another and why that exactly matches the phylogenetic tree.
Go ahead, Ken.
All right. That was about 7 questions in a row instead of one topic at a time, like we're supposed to be doing. So I think I did very clearly. You see, you're stuck on that word virus. In your mind, oh, that means bad, evil. That's the problem. ERVs have a function. Maybe you pick a new name for it, okay? It's a section of a DNA code. Why do all the mammals have one? They need it for whatever they do. They make a placenta. Maybe it's part of that code to activate something. So no, I'm not afraid of the question. This is not my field of expertise on ERVs. I'll do more research on it, I can assure you. But meanwhile, all the researchers are saying, look, they have a function. They promote something. They do this. They do that. They're from accused predators to cheerful protectors. Wow. So yes, I think you're mistaken. You're way behind on your scientific research. ERVs are not evidence for evolution. They're evidence of a designer. And if there's common to different animals in the same, like mammals with a placenta, maybe they have something to do with activating the design of the placenta in the development. But this is a part of an incredibly complex code. 50 million to 250 million base pairs on a chromosome. Do you really think all that happened by chance and came from a dot of nothing exploding? That's your religion. You believe a dot of nothing, a proton size, contained all the matter in the universe and turned into all this code by itself. You cannot write a DNA code like that. The DNA code is mind-boggling in its complexity, and to say it happened by chance is just absolute insanity. That code is way too complex. It's a four-dimensional code, actually. So you can believe whatever you want, but don't teach that to kids. Please, don't teach that to kids. That would be, I think, child abuse.
Yeah, so yeah, even you just reading out the title of that, From Accused Predators to Cheerful Protectors, what it's basically saying is that these viral sequences used to be harmful. And quite frankly, it's like, I don't love the word virus. It's just the correct word to use. I don't know why we'd call them something else when that's what they are. It's so weird you would sort of say that. It's like, well, don't call a spade. Weird. So I don't know. It's funny that you accuse me of changing the subject, and then you've gone to a dot exploding, which I think you're referring to Big Bang Theory for some weird reason. Like, we're talking about biological evolution. You accuse me of changing the subject, then you go to big. That's golden. You're a hoot, Mr. Hovind, really. And you say it happened by chance. We don't think biological evolution happened by chance. The mutations are chance. Where they land is chance. Natural selection is a deterministic process, as well as artificial selection, for that matter. Some of the processes of evolution are chance, genetic drift, where basically chance can govern which organism survives, but nobody is saying that this process is chance. So keep stuffing that straw man, Kent, because that's all it is. You're just fighting a straw man that you're just pumping up by basically misrepresenting the science. And enough people have told you this for you to know it by now, which sort of is a bit of a worry. We're going to teach science to kids, just any science that meets the criteria of being science. We don't have to check with you whether you think it's science or not, Kent. Nobody in the scientific field cares if you approve. Sorry.
Donnie, I did not understand about a third of his vocabulary there as far as the wording, Australian accent or something. I didn't get it all, but I will go back to what I've said before. Endogenous retroviruses are being proven over and over again to have a function. So your whole theory is based on the wrong idea that something went wrong and it got passed on, and now all the primates have that. It was just always designed to be that way. They protect us from viral infections. Oh, okay. So the ERVs are not evidence for evolution. The title to the debate is, what's the evidence? Where's the evidence for, is there scientific evidence for biological evolution? You think ERVs are evidence for it? Great, you keep thinking that. What's your next one, Mark? What else do you think is evidence for evolution?
Well, you still haven't addressed why it fits in perfectly with the rest of the phylogenetic tree, which we knew about sort of 150 years before DNA at all. Why we had that tree saying, hey, based upon the fossil record and based upon the physiological similarities, why it all fits in with that. You haven't answered that in the slightest. You've just sort of said, hey, it's designed, and which is just a baseless claim. You haven't presented any evidence of design. You've just claimed it and then sort of ranted about it for a while. So I guess what I would want next is evidence of your designer that you're claiming exists, because you're making a lot of claims here.
Well, the topic is not specific. I don't have to prove that as a designer, because I'm not asking for my theory to be taught in schools. You're demanding that your religion be taught in all public schools, and we got to all pay for it to teach the kids there is no designer. So the burden of proof is on you, not me. You need to go back and read the title to the debate that you signed up for. Now, you mentioned earlier when you first gave your opening statement about embryology being evidence for evolution. You just now said fossil record, homology. You alluded to that. The other facts that fit the family tree. There is no family tree. Humans produce humans every time, without exception. Monkeys produce monkeys. Cows produce cows. There are no exceptions to that, none, other than imagination. Long ago and far away, billions and billions of years ago. Embryology, if you're going to teach that, you are way behind on your science. That's been proven wrong since 1874. There's no evidence for evolution from embryology. Haeckel lied. He made up pictures and lied. Watch my video number 4. I'll send it to you if you'll watch it. The lies in the textbooks. You can watch it online. You think homology, you alluded to that, the similar structure, the way they're built. That, again, is not evidence for a common ancestor. We got 2 bones in our wrist. So do a lot of animals have 2 bones in their wrist. It's a great design. It works great. You can move it all kinds of different ways. The radius and the ulna and the humerus and the biceps, triceps, deltoid. This system works really well for a lot of applications. A lot of cars on the road have A-frames and steering mechanism to be able to move the front wheels because they need to move the front wheels when they go around a corner. That's not proof of a common ancestor. It's proof of a good design. So what you're claiming, you try to slap that in and then run off to a new topic. You're claiming that embryology is evidence for evolution. You're way behind on your science, okay? You're claiming homology, similar structures. That's not proof for common ancestor. It's just as much proof for common designer. And then the fossil record, Mark, there is no such thing as a fossil record. There are fossils by the trillions. None of them talk. None of them have a date stamped on them. You put your imagination on them. Oh, wow, look at this. That's from the Cambrian era. Oh, that's from the Jurassic. Yeah, you can put all the names on it you want. The fact is, there are lots of fossils in the ground. That's to be expected from a worldwide flood. I think we find billions of rock layers all over the world with billions of fossils in them from a flood of Noah, including trees standing up running through all the layers. You guys never answer that one. Polystrata trees. You claim there's a fossil record. Okay, why do we have trees connecting all these layers that you claim are different ages? And if the top layer is younger, where did it come from? Outer space? All the layers formed in one big flood in the days of Noah is my claim, but I'm not asking that to be taught or demanding it be taught. You guys are demanding that we teach the kids these layers are different ages, and that is absolute insanity. Those layers are not different ages. They all formed in one big flood. You can believe whatever you want, but you're claiming that there's evidence from fossil record. There is no such thing as a fossil record. There is no such thing as a geologic column. And if everybody believes there is, well, then they're wrong. A whole lot of people followed Hitler. A whole lot of people followed Mao Zedong. A lot of people follow false teachers. You're following one right now. You believe you came from a rock, and you brought up that all this ERVs is evidence for common ancestor. I'm bringing up that your theory is coming back from a Big Bang is all part of the same thing. I didn't go off topic. You went off topic first. You want to claim that ERVs prove you're related to an amoeba or a protozoa? You're the one who went off topic, Mark. Go ahead. Give me another one.
Go ahead, Mark.
So here's Kent saying you went off topic. You went from fossil record to the flood to polystrata trees to stratigraphy to Hitler and Macy's son. You're accusing me of going off topic when you're doing Godwin's law. You're bringing up Hitler. Oh, that's gold, Kent. Like, I hope I'm going to keep this forever. This is amazing. So yeah, the fossil record, it obviously exists. That's been well documented in science. Formed in the flood. That's obviously just a bunch of baloney. I've done a flood debate against you. You probably remember it was absolute baloney. Polystrata trees. So the trees that you're finding are not polystrata. They're basically formed in a large amount of deposit that was rapidly placed there, but it's not a different strata layer. And I've talked to a geologist about this. You actually think it's polystrata, and it's not. This is where creationists are completely wrong, because they think if you've got a X amount of deposit, it must be polystrata. That is not how it works. So you're completely wrong on that. I don't know where to go with Hitler and Macy's. I mean, it just sounds like Kent is just appealing to some kind of weird thing. Oh, you mentioned Haeckel as well. Haeckel he brought up as well. So Gish galloping to Haeckel. Haeckel, the first edition of his textbook was actually pictures, and he did receive a lot of protests about it from, well, people like Mr Hovind. He actually took photos for the rest of the textbooks. That's been very, very widely debunked as just absolute nonsense, Ken. But you and your ilk kind of still harp on about that one textbook, which in fact he corrected. So, good luck with that. You bring up cars again. As I said, biological organisms are not cars. They can't do vertical transmission because, big surprise, they don't reproduce, which, I don't know why I have to tell a grown man that cars don't reproduce, but, here we are. What my question was that you completely avoided was, how come, based upon all these things, we made the phylogenetic tree, and then the retroviruses and DNA evidence and the mutations in the retroviruses match perfectly with the phylogenetic tree? Why do they do that?
Well, they made the phylogenetic tree claiming all organisms are related. There's the first mistake. That's not true. There is no phylogenetic tree. And you said the textbooks have been corrected on embryology. Boy, you are way behind on that. They're still teaching using Haeckel's exact same chart in college textbooks today. Still using it. Type in Google evidence for evolution embryology. You'll find Haeckel's chart proven wrong in 1874, still being used today. No, they did not correct it in 1869 when he made his chart, proven wrong in 1874. You still mention it as evidence for evolution. The embryos are very different. They're designed. But they made up this phylogenetic tree, and that's where the problem started. Everything now has to match this. How are these related? Wow. And if you publish a paper that doesn't go along with this phylogenetic tree, wow, we have to bow down to this God right here. That's your idol. These trees are pure propaganda. Nobody has ever seen a protozoa produce a non-protozoa, let alone go into a sponge or a worm or anything else. This is not science. This is imagination. Give me a science experiment where anybody's ever seen a protozoa or a bacteria or an amoeba. Pick any of the 20,000 single-celled animals out there or plants. Show me. Let's do it in the laboratory. I want to see you make a protozoa go into anything other than a protozoa. Has that ever been observed? Or are you going to rely on billions of years and lots of time, put it in the invisible past? Long ago and far away. It's a fairy tale, Mark. You believe in fairy tales, but that's okay. I'll read you a bedtime story if you'd like.
Yeah, so this is another case of we need to see it happen over a long period of time, and there has been mutations which have caused, and we've gone through several of them, like the algae that became a multicellular creature and formed a nest around itself to protect it from predators. So we have seen the startings of speciation. But this is the problem with Kent. He's like the criminal that basically gets caught and says, oh, nobody saw me do it. There's nobody saw me do it. I didn't see this. Nobody saw it. Yeah, but we've got DNA evidence. We've got the fingerprint, and we've got sort of the forensic scientific evidence. Nobody has to see you in this case. We're looking at the evidence, and it's definitely reasonable evidence to believe in evolution, if not completely conclusive, of these ERV sequences, the mutations in them, and where they line up to where one species diverged off of another is the only rational explanation we have heard tonight. Kent hasn't given an explanation. He said designer. He hasn't explained why the scar tissue, the long terminal repeats are there. He hasn't explained how it's happened. He's explained nothing. He's basically just said, please, designer, that'll save me. It doesn't explain anything. It just explains that Kent doesn't understand what he's talking about. But we don't need to see these happening. We haven't seen the Himalayas sprout up, but we know that India crashing into the Asian continent is causing that. We haven't seen certain people rob a house. We've got the DNA evidence to prove it. Your idea of we have to see it with our own two eyes is something out of a previous century, Kent. You need to get with the program. We have other ways of finding evidence than did somebody see something.
Mr. Reid, science is the knowledge gained from using observations, experiments to describe and explain the world around us. The scientific method, ways to solve a problem, make an observation, develop an idea, think of experiments, test it, observe what happens, modify the idea. Okay, cows produce cows. It must be genetic. Let's keep breeding them. Babies will be cows. They're always cows. Seems to always work. You just got done saying we don't have to observe it. No one saw it. We don't have to observe it. My point is, this isn't science. How many times do I have to say it before you understand? Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Nobody ever sees anything produce something other than its kind. You relied quickly and slid past it, hoping nobody would catch it. You relied, let's see, what was the quote? It requires a long period of time. There you go. There's your imagination. This is your long ago and far away, boys and girls. Yes, kiss the frog and it turns to a prince. It happened long ago. It doesn't happen anymore. It happened long ago. Do you believe you were related to a frog, Mark?
Oh, is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Trees.
You show these trees.
So am I? It depends on how you're using related. Am I related to you, Ken?
I think we both have a common ancestor in Adam. That would not be evidence we have a common ancestor with a frog. Do you believe you have a common ancestor with a frog?
No, I believe we're related in that sense to frogs, that we have a common ancestor, albeit really, really long ago and really, really far away removed. It's such a long time ago that we almost have none of the same traits, but we do still we do have common ERVs in our DNA. So maybe you can explain that one.
Time and more time. The similarities in the DNA code are evidence the same guy wrote the code. The code is really complex. How many lines of code are required to make a star on your computer that appears and spins around? Probably millions of lines of code just to do a simple thing like that. How many lines of code are required to make a human eyeball or a cow's eyeball? I bet the lines of code are similar for the production of a cow eye and a human eye, because the same guy wrote the code, not proof of evolution. And so you on the record now, you believe it took a long time and far away, but you're related to a frog. I am not, for the record, okay? I'm not.
Sure, yeah.
You can believe what you want, but that's not science. Science, what we can observe, study, test. Look up the word science, Latin word "seer," to know. We know cows produce cows. We do not know cows are related to humans. You can believe that. That's your religion. You won't see it. You don't want to see it. That's okay. So back to the topic. Where's your evidence for evolution? ERVs was one. You tried to slip in embryology as another evidence for evolution.
No, I didn't. All I said was that the phylogeny tree was based upon those things, and that the distribution of ERVs and mutations within those ERVs fits perfectly into that model that we have created for some reason that you seem to think is, oh, well, it was just designed to do that, including the LTRs, which show that a virus was inserted at that point. For some reason, you think that's convincing. You think that, oh, well, he designed it to look like an enzyme made a cut in the DNA and left long terminal repeats at the end of these viral segments that we know are viral segments because they have all the classic distinctions, the ENV, the POL, and the GAG segments of viruses. For some reason, I don't know why. Sure. I mean, if you want to believe that, go for it. But theory of evolution is every bit of science as the theory of gravity and the theory of germ theory of disease. It's every bit a science of that. And like I said, Kent, the scientists and science community and science educators don't really care what you consider a science, because you don't even understand these things, much less have an influence on them.
Okay. If evolution is like the theory of gravity, watch this carefully. I can show it to you. I could measure it and figure it out. Wow, it falls at 1/2 GT squared, and I could do some experiments with gravity. Show me any animal. Show me he's got these lines on paper here connecting all these creatures. Show me how a shark and a fern came from a common ancestor with an octopus. Pick a single-celled creature, any one of the 20,000 varieties, and make it do something else. They got a short generation time. Some of them grow up, get married, and have babies in 8 hours. Okay? Pick one that does that, short generation time, and turn it into something other than what it started off to be, whether it be a protozoa, bacteria, an amoeba. Show it to me in the laboratory. Where's the science experiment? Send me the paper. I want to read that, where they turned an amoeba into anything other than amoeba. Show me that experiment. I don't think it happens. I think it's a religion, and it's criminal to teach the kids protozoa turn to biology teachers. This is not science. This is propaganda 101. So if I can show you gravity, we can talk about that. I taught physical science. I can tell you quite a bit about gravity if you'd like, what we know about it. Nobody knows what it is. Give me a jar of gravity and paint it red. We know how it works. We know the operation. It's the laws. Who made these laws of this universe? It has to be a lawgiver. The law of inertia, the law of gravity, centrifugal force, first and second laws of thermodynamics, and third law. There are laws. I think there's a mind behind the laws. But that's a different story. We're not here to argue about creation. You're supposed to provide evidence for evolution. I don't think you have. I think I win the debate. Thank you. Let's go home.
Okay, thank you for that response, Kent. Mark, we'll give you an opportunity to respond as well. Gentlemen, I just want to be cognizant of both of your time tonight. We're coming close to the hour mark in terms of the discussion. It really has flown by. It's been an engaging one. We've got a huge live chat enjoying this one tonight. I'm not sure if there's one final line of argumentation you wanted to put forth, Mark, or we could make this your final response. We'll give Kent the last word, then you get a concluding statement. How would you gentlemen like to proceed at this point?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that Kent just brought up getting a jar of gravity and paint it red. Did you actually say that? Like, I could say the same thing to you. Like, show me a tree growing kind of thing. Show me a mountain being upthrust from the plate tectonic movement. Show me Pluto going around the sun. It takes thousands of years. You can't, can you? But we do know it happens because of the evidence we've gathered about it. And those connections you have, and don't forget, I said this at the very start, those graphs that Kent is using are very, very simplified. And the people that do genetics, they've got much more complicated ones that, quite frankly, are beyond me and certainly beyond Kent. So they are showing that these ERVs, like there will be the shark, the starfish, and something else you showed, there will be a common ERV between them all. And maybe the shark will have a different mutation in that ERV that the others won't have. So we know that mutation occurred after they diverged. Or else what you've got to believe is not only did a designer design all these things to look like a virus was inserted in the DNA of these animals, but he's got a lot of work constantly going back in there and tinkering around and making sure the mutations in these ERVs follow exactly the phylogenetic tree that we already made based upon the other evidence. So I wouldn't like that creator's job, because he'd have a lot of work to do to make sure everything lined up perfectly. But, I'll just mention, yes, this isn't about creation. I do admit that. Kent wouldn't debate me on creation. He's afraid to defend his own worldview. That's okay. I don't mind. So, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you, Donnie.
Okay, thank you, Mark. What we'll do, Mark, you started the discussion, so Kent, feel free to respond to that. Then that'll wrap up the discussion. Mark, whatever you want to respond to based on what Kent's about to say, save it for your concluding statement. We'll give you 5 minutes. We'll give Kent 5 minutes, and then we'll get into some of these audience questions. We've got audience questions to keep us busy till next week. So, Kent, go ahead for your response.
Okay, I believe I can show you or anybody a tree growing with time-lapse photography. Take a picture of the tree every hour, and we could put them all together and speed it up and show the tree growing. I think we could show a mountain growing, same way. I think we could show Pluto going around the sun, same way. Of course, it's difficult to see Pluto, but let's get a good telescope. We could probably do that with time-lapse. Get a time-lapse photography and show me the photographs, not drawings somebody made up, of an amoeba turning into something other than an amoeba. You guys are claiming protozoa turned to biology teachers and everything else. Get time-lapse photography of protozoa. We've got all kinds of cameras in the laboratory now. Take a protozoa or an amoeba or a bacteria, whatever you want to start with, and turn it into something else and do time-lapse photography. Their whole lifespan is 8 minutes or 8 hours. You can get 3 generations in one day. Set the camera, automatic, go off every 2 hours, and change the protozoa to something else. I could do that with a tree or with a mountain or Pluto. You can't do that with evolution. It's not observable. You have to imagine. It took a long time. Okay, it took a long time for the tree to grow too, but I could show it happening. You can't show me a protozoa turning into anything else. You have a religion, you believe it happened with lots of time. Let me get the pacifiers out for you. More time. Let's see, we got time and more time. You need billions of years to turn your amoeba to a biology teacher. Your whole religion is based on time. And it's unseen. You believe it happened long ago. Well, do it again. I mean, if it could happen then, let's do it. Why isn't any animal turning into anything else today? You got these family trees showing them all related. None of them are doing it today. Birds are always making baby birds without exceptions. Cows make baby cows. Dogs make baby dogs. There are no exceptions. There's no evidence for your religion at all. So, yes, I think I could show you those things happening. You show me scientific evidence, observable, testable. Let me go back and let you try to read it one more time. Definition of science. Knowledge gain. The science is the knowledge gained from using observations and experiments to describe and explain the world, not imagination. That's science. It comes from the Latin word "sere," to know. What do we know? Well, we know cows make cows. We do not know these charts are science. It's speculation. No one's ever seen an ape produce a non-ape. No one's ever seen a monkey produce a non-monkey. It's just lines on paper is all it is. Science means knowledge, the Latin word "sere," to know. What do we know? Well, we know cows make cows. Religion is an attempt to understand and explain the world, but religion is not considered science. Okay, evolution is a religion. It's not science. You guys have had it in there for a couple of decades and you think it's part of science now. Sorry, you're mistaken. You got brainwashed. So, can we want a Q&A time, Donnie?
Yep. What we'll do is that wraps up the open discussion. Let's say in terms of concluding statements, let's make it 3 to 5 minutes, hopefully closer to 3 than the 5 minutes. That way we'll get more questions in. But I know it's always appropriate to wrap up our points and thoughts, especially after a discussion period this heavy. So, Mark, let's hand it over to you. 3 to 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, just make sure to unmute yourself. The floor is yours. Oh, just make sure to unmute yourself, Mark.
Thank you, Donnie. Sorry, yeah, you did say, I just completely missed it. Yeah, so what I've run through is a series of analysis of these ERV elements and how they relate to one another and how we track the mutations within the ERV elements. Now, this is done by geneticists, including Christian geneticists, people like Francis Collins, who mapped the human genome. Great respect for him. And all of this points to one answer. And the idea that it was designed, including the sort of scars that the enzyme made to insert itself, including the mutations that happen throughout time. Because don't forget that multiple organisms can share this mutation and they'll be closer related to something that doesn't, but has an unmutated form of the viruses. Now we've gone in and we've turned these viruses back on. Kent says, oh, they must all have a function. No, that's not true. Some of them are just deactivated. They've been turned off. We can turn them back on. We've done that in the past. We can do certain things with them and see them propagate throughout the lineages of the animals we have. We do experiments with these things. None of this is unexperimental. Kent basically wants you to go, well, show me it straight away. And that was my point with the tree and the mountain, which I can't show you straight away. It's based upon a time frame that's large. And, the sight of a grown man playing with a dummy tonight is a bit weird, but never mind. Like, for instance, long terminal period comets. Long period comets. Like, one of them, the Hyakute, is 70,000 years. I can't show you that. I can't show you that comet will go around a certain, the solar system in that time. I can't. Like Pluto, I can't show you the 248 years it takes for Pluto to go around the sun. But we know from our understanding and our knowledge about how these things work that it will happen. And the same is true for evolution. You can't just show somebody straight away. And I mentioned earlier of algae becoming multicellular, a topic that sort of Kent avoids because it's sort of fatalistic to his narrative. But, we can show you that. But, you want to say, oh, well, show me something that's not algae. Well, that takes too long. And Kent can sort of say, oh, time and stuff. Yeah, it takes time. Just like the long period comet of 70,000 years. It's sort of like, well, why doesn't it take sooner? That's just reality. And that's all that it is. So I've sort of shown the science and the way that we know that this nested hierarchy of animals and organisms, all organisms exist, and how we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are related due to these viral insertions and the mutations of those viral insertions. As far as I can tell, Kent's just yelled propaganda and then given a variety of references that actually back up my argument. So, yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for that concluding statement. That was 3 minutes on the dot. And so, Kent, we'll give you the same amount of time, let's say 3 to 5 minutes, concluding statement, and then we'll get into some audience questions. Kent, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. The topic tonight is there reasonable evidence for biological evolution? I don't think he presented any. He believes ERVs are evidence. Okay, believe what you want. But evolution has 6 different meanings, and I cover this. The atheists don't like this one. They especially don't like the first 4, but that's part of the theory. But macroevolution is changing from one kind of animal to another. The Bible says they're going to bring forth after their kind. I think there's 400 varieties of cows now. How many kinds of dogs? 339 last count. 1,000 types of bananas. How many eagles? I think it's 60 different kinds of eagles now. How many kinds of oaks are there? Well, let's see. 600 types of oaks. Wow. How many kinds of bears? 8 different kinds of bears. All we've ever seen in humanity, in history, is animals producing after their kind, which God said they would do. I think that would be scientifically verifiable. It looks like that's what they always have done. It says it 24 times in the first 7 chapters. And you just mentioned tonight, you can go back and replay it for yourself, about long period comets. It takes a long time. Show me straight away. I never said show me straight away. Show me the evidence at all for any animal producing a different kind of animal, or even starting to. And why could it happen long ago? Why isn't it happening now? Animals are still making babies now. Why don't we see a cow that's slightly non-cow, or a dog slightly non-dog, or a banana slightly non-banana? It's not observable science. Cows produce cows every single time. So you said it takes too long to see. Well, then until it's proven, call it what it is. It's your religious belief. You believe it happened. I think we can demonstrate with long period comets using all the laws of physics, how they travel through the solar system, the arc, and which way it's going. I think we could make a good guess at how long it's going to take to loop around. That would be more scientific than saying a cow came from an amoeba. You believe very strongly, obviously, that a cow came from an amoeba, and you came from an amoeba, and you're related to a frog. You can believe that all you want. I don't believe that. I'm not at all. I think all we've ever seen is dogs produce dogs, cows produce cows, bananas make bananas, eagles make eagles, oaks make oaks. It doesn't happen. Your theory is not even a good theory. It's not even a good hypothesis. It's a religious belief that if we had enough time, they could change to something else. I think there's all kinds of scientific indicators the universe cannot be billions of years old. I could pull the pacifier out of your mouth on that one. There isn't enough time. The moon's getting further away. The sun is burning up its fuel. The earth is slowing down in its spin. The oceans are getting saltier. There's all kinds of factors talking about how the earth can't be billions of years old. Get my video number 1, The Age of the Earth, how to prove the earth ain't billions of years old. So just taking out time completely destroys your religion. But even then, there is no science to back it up. I'm sorry. Somebody taught you that when you were little. You should have been more observant and said, wait a minute, I don't think that's true. But anyway, you fell for it. I'm here to help you, Mark. Anytime. Call me. I'll help. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Kent, for that 3-minute concluding statement. Gentlemen, that wraps up the opening arguments discussion. Definitely a discussion to remember, and also the concluding statement. So we've got some good time here for some solid questions. I do want to thank the audience for being so engaged in this topic. The live chat was very lively tonight. Lots of side debates going on. It's been a much anticipated debate. It definitely didn't disappoint. So what we'll do, you both have been here before, Kent and Mark, so I'm sure you understand how we do the Q&As. Whoever the question is for, we'll make sure they get the last word. Say the questions for Mark. Mark, you get to answer. Kent can give a response. Then Mark will give you the last word. So here we go. Question number 1 out of 200. So Centurion has a question for Mark. And what I'll say to the audience, I've got a ton of questions, but guys, what I'm going to do is really do my best to just pick the ones that are most relevant to tonight, biological evolution. So, okay, Centurion's question is, Mark, since mutations are the driving force for evolution, which has more influence, germline or somatic mutations? How does this affect the phenotype expression in an organism?
Okay, so it depends on what you mean by influence. Like if you're talking short term, then yeah, there's much more somatic mutations that occur. If you're talking about germline, then they will, like in the long term, provide a much more impact on the expression of the phenotype. Phenotype expression is when they are removed from the rest of the population, and the mutations add up enough to change sort of enough. I'm probably not explaining this very well, but change enough to make them unable to propagate with the original population. So I'm not sure which has a more impactful influence on phenotype expression. I would imagine it would be the germline mutations, but that is just a educated guess.
All right, appreciate the response there, Mark. Kent, if there's anything you'd like to add, the floor.
Well, I would like to see the evidence for a beneficial mutation. I was trying to get my slides called up in time, but I cover this in great detail in video number 4. There are lots of mutations. All of them I'm aware of are harmful, fatal, or neutral. If you had a beneficial mutation, you'd have to get 2 of the opposite sex in the same place at the same time, and they would have to now swamp the population with this beneficial mutation. This is dreaming. It's not science. It's not observable. So I'm not aware of any. He's right. The question is good. Mutations are supposed to be the driving force for evolution. Show me how. Show me a beneficial mutation. I will say I've never seen one. I've heard people talk about them, but there's no evidence that I've seen of a beneficial mutation. We got flocks of ducks here in our lake. Some of them have mutations. They're harmful, fatal, or neutral. So it's just imagination. Again, back to the SpongeBob imagination. You can imagine that mutations happen and they're beneficial. Show me one. You'd have to have trillions of them to turn an amoeba to a whale. And at every step of the way, each mutation, you got to have 2 if it's sexual reproducing of the opposite sex. What if they're both male? What if they're both female? What if they're male, female, but 1,000 years apart or 1,000 miles apart? It is just dreaming to say mutations are going to cause evolution. Mutations do not cause any evolution at all. Mutations cause problems. They've all been harmful, fatal, or neutral. You'd have to have trillions of good ones. I don't think they exist. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Kent, for that response. Mark, question was for you. Get the last one.
Yeah, so Kent made exactly the same mistake in our last debate, thinking you've got to have 2 animals with the same mutation randomly get the same mutation. No, you just need 1 animal with the mutation. When it breeds, it'll pass the mutation onto some of its offspring and not others, because that an organism may breed with multiple creatures because the mutation may make it very successful. There will be that mutation passed throughout the population. It's not fixed yet because not all of the organisms have that mutation in their genetic makeup. So I've explained all of this to Kent last debate and he didn't seem to understand then either. So you don't need 2 mutations arising at the same time in 2 different organisms. You just need 1. So it's absolutely 100% wrong. Stuff like Lenski labs have shown us that certain organisms under pressure will change their food intake due to mutation. And in fact, there is a bacteria that we found living in the output, the waste output lake of a sump kind of thing, of a nylon factory. It mutated this enzyme called nylonase, which allows it to process nylon. That mutation is very recent because nylon is a synthetic fabric that didn't even exist up until recently. And I will just mention, just quickly, it sounds like Kent's volume has gone up. Are you guys getting that, or is it just me?
Let me see here. I'll have to mute him.
Can we just do a quick sound check?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
How's that sound?
Yeah, it sounds a bit loud to me, but maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'll see if I can.
It's on my end. It's still at the same. It's got automatically adjust mic volume is checked off. So
okay. No worries.
He doesn't want to hear it. It's a problem. Go ahead.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for the responses there. Keeping it fun. Chat's moving quick. I just lost the question. Let me put it back up here. Okay, so next question is for Kent. So we got a good solid mix of questions for the both of you. This one is from Assembly of God. For Kent, who fused the human chromosome number 2? Was it God?
Okay. Chromosome number 2 is not fused. That is the problem. Let's see. I had that up a minute ago. My seminar, let's see. F open. I get 50,000 slides here. I did a whole bunch of research today on this chromosome 2 and have a whole bunch of slides ready for that if you want to take a whole nother debate. Donnie, you thought he was going to use chromosome 2 for tonight, so I was very ready for that. I'll just save the. There we go. Okay. Alt DV. Chromosome 2, here we go. Who fused it? It's not fused. They say this picture of creation is terrified. Oh, Mother Jones thinks we're terrified of the chromosome 2. Even Kenneth Miller, Rhode Island feature there. Intelligent Design on Trial. Chromosome 2 is supposed to be evidence, okay, for evolution. Chromosome 2 happened a few million years ago, the chromosome fused. There's a great article on Answers in Genesis. There's another one on ICR, Institute for Creation Research, answering all this. It's not a fusion site. You go down deep, stay down long, get all the details there. But I would recommend you go to Answers Research Journal, where they've done this. The depiction of the mythical fusion event drawn to actual comparative scale. Approximately 24 million bases of chimp DNA, or chromosome 2, are missing. Chromosome 2 is not evidence for evolution. It's designed. It works just fine, just like it is. Real fusions occur in nature when it happens. What they see with chromosome 2 is not evidence for a chimpanzee turning into a human, which is what they'd like to do. It's only got 798 DNA letters long. Usually they have 10 to 30,000 DNA. So we'll bring that up in another debate. That would take 2 hours, but I'm ready for that one. Go ahead.
Okay, Kent, thank you for the response. Assembly of God, thank you for the question. And Mark Reid, over to you if you had a response. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, he brings up articles that completely disagree with him. Yeah, so he hasn't even addressed the problem with the centromeres, the primary and secondary centromere and the chromosome 2 fusion. Hasn't explained why there's telomere fragments in the center of it. He's just sort of said, hey, answers in Genesis say that they're not telomeres. Well, you know, just about every single geneticist in the world says, hey, they're ones that, you know, they're telomere fragments in the center of this fusion site. And there's no reason why they have to be twice as long as the 2 fused sides of it. So through mutation, we know that omission can occur, basically that the DNA segment can loop over and it does not replicate a segment of DNA. So that's not in any way a defeater to the chromosome 2 problem for the creationists. So yeah, go ahead, address the centromeres.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Kent, question was for you. You get the last word.
Well, the question contains a mistake in the question. Who fused it? It's not fused. It's designed just like it is. So nobody takes the credit or blame for it. It's just that's designed the way it is.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for the responses on that one. And let's move right on to the next. So question comes in from Tanya Brown. Now, this one is for you, Mark Reid. So she asks, for Mark, given a virus's limited ability to survive outside its host, doesn't it make more sense that it originated inside the host?
Yeah, good question. And we don't 100% know where viruses exactly came from. But it doesn't make more sense to say that it originates in a host, because the long terminal repeats on the end are indicative that integrase had made a cut in the DNA, and I can't emphasize that enough. That's the only time we see it happening. When it replicates, it doesn't replicate the long terminal repeats. What it does is it replicates the inside of it, and then that makes another cut in another segment of DNA, spreading the DNA, and that makes the long terminal repeats on the same side. So it's like a scar. And seeing a foreign body, because we know that the virus is a foreign body because of its structure, the GAG, ENV, and POL sequences within it, we know that's foreign. It would be seeing a splinter with scar tissue and going, well, wouldn't that make more sense that it originated in the body? No, we can tell from the foreign nature and the scar that it didn't originate in the host. It is a limited ability to survive outside a host, but they generally are passed horizontally from host to host to host, multiplying as they go. So they may remain in one, and they might skip to others and others and others and get passed around, like a flu virus, for instance, might just get transmitted. So no, it doesn't make more sense that it originated in a host, no.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thanks for the question, Tanya. And Kent, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
I would answer the question saying, yes, it does make more sense. It had to originate inside the host. No, nothing similar to a sliver going into your skin, leaving a scar. It's designed. Even a virus is very complicated. I'd say it shows evidence of design. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Mark, quick final word. Question was for you.
Yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever. There's no reason why somebody would design a viral segment with the long terminal repeats in it, and then go in every so often to change the genetic structure of these viruses in order to match where organisms apparently branched off that he says isn't happening. It's the most ridiculous concept that has ever been suggested in the history of science at all. The mental leaps that you would have to go to say, hey, that originated in humans, but there's the long terminal repeats in there. That must have originated there as well for some reason. It's just baffling how you could possibly think that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on to the next question. This one comes in from Hill Hugger. Thank you for the super chat, support, and question. So this one's for Kent. Why are whale sharks designed with gills and not lungs?
Whale sharks are considered to be a fish. They live underwater. They swim through the water. They breathe underwater. They need gills. It's the word whale that confuses people. It's a fish in the fish family. It has gills. It swims underwater, breathes underwater. So simple. They're designed to breathe underwater.
Okay, appreciate it, Kent. Thank you so much. Mark, if there's anything you'd like to add, the floor is yours.
Yeah, fantastic. I think a better question is, why does the lungfish use its swim bladder as lungs is a better question. Or better yet, the mud skipper, which I brought up in a previous debate, has lungs and can in fact climb trees, and it is a fish with gills. How about that one?
Okay, thank you, Mark. And Kent, you can have a quick final word if you'd like to. Question was for you.
Well, notice he's going off topic to a new topic. The question was, why are whale sharks designed with gills and not lungs? They swim in the water. I answered the question clearly.
Okay, appreciate it. Moving on. Next question comes in from Ray AI. Thank you so much for the question and the support. Question for Kent. Aren't we all technically related if God used the same ingredients? Dust from the ground to create humans / animals?
Well, that's a good question, right? You'd have to analyze that very carefully. We're all created from the same material. We all need the same minerals and vitamins to survive. Different people need different amounts of different things. I understand. So yes, it depends on your definition of the word related. Are we related in that we all have a common designer, which is what that question clearly implies? The same guy created the animals and the plants from the same material. I bet you could find factories that create things out of metal, lots of different things out of metal. They all come from the same factory. Wow. I bet the Honda Prelude, the Honda Accord, the Honda Insight, maybe all come from Honda. And they're all made of metal. Whoa. Are they related? No, they don't make babies. So are the related indicating as an ancestral, like great-great-great-great-grandfather? No, not at all. Same God designed them? Absolutely yes. So it's a definition of the word related there. You got to be kind of cautious. What exactly do you mean by that? Am I related to a strawberry or to a tomato or a whale? No, not with a common ancestor. Have a common designer. Or a frog, I'm sorry. Mark's related to a frog.
All right, thank you for the response, Kent and Mark. Go ahead. Floor is yours for a response.
Thank you, Donnie. Yeah, so Kent basically says that we all need the same things to survive, not realizing that plants don't actually need oxygen and it's a waste product. So he's completely and utterly wrong on basic science, which is just glorious, Mr. Hovind. That's incredible. Yeah, but I mean, this is a weird question. Yeah, we're all made of the same kind of atoms. I don't know if dust makes us related in Kent's fairy tale thing, whatever. But yeah, you'd think that it's related if it's biologically similar, and dust isn't biological, and I don't think magic is biological. Ken will have to tell me if magic is biological.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Kent, you get the last word. Go ahead.
No, nothing more to add other than the word related is throwing him off. We have the same ancestor. We have the same molecules. Does not mean we have the same biological ancestor, which is the topic of the debate tonight. There is no evidence for biological evolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Kent. Next question comes in from Ken Rock. Question for Kent. Are all spiders related? If not, why not?
I don't know. There's, I think, 12,000 or more varieties of spiders. At least man has decided to classify them and give them different names. I don't think the spiders care what we call them, okay? They will select their own mate based on their own kind. The wolf spiders look for other wolf spiders. They don't look for banana spiders. So apparently they know more than we know what's the same kind. But I would say they all have the same designer. If you mean that for, again, the word related, what do you mean by related? Yes, we have the same designer, and they're amazing. A spider, any spider is Any one spider is more complex than the space shuttle or the whole Australian government. One spider. So it's just incredible to say this happened by chance. I don't understand how anybody can be so scientifically illiterate to believe even a spider happened by chance and came from a dot. I don't understand. But so yes, I define what you mean by related. Related to the common designer? Yes. Related to each other? Probably not. God might have made, 5,000 kinds of spiders, and now there's 12,000 varieties. But it's us classifying them. They don't care where we put them. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the response. Kent, Mark, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
Yeah. The Australian government is very, very, very simple. I do admit they're very, very simple kind of thing, which is awesome. So Kent's sort of like, well, this kind thing, and I wish I'd asked him more about what he considers a kind, because it seems to vary depending on his current needs. So basically all of these spiders have the traits which are very, very similar, but he doesn't put them in the same kind because obviously they can't breed. I would wager a guess that there are hundreds of thousands of spider kinds because a lot of spiders can't breed. So it's kind of weird that kind sort of shuffles around depending on where Kent actually needs it. And so I think that sort of using kinds to identify animals instead of the phylogenetic tree is functionally useless. You can't, Kent won't provide any kind of diagram or any kind of assessment of where these kinds are and which animals categorically fit into which kind and which doesn't, because almost certainly he'll be proved wrong on something, and then he'll basically have to backpedal. So of course he won't provide any definitive description of a kind, because and if I'm wrong, please do send me a list of all the kinds and which animals fit into them and why. I'd love to see it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Question was for you, Kent. You can have the last word.
I've started. I believe I've uncovered 21 different definitions of species in the different scientific literature. I'm doing a paper on that. I'm doing research on that. So exactly what is a species? Is a dog and a wolf different species? Yep. Can they interbreed? Yep. So I don't think you get the same problem with the word species. But again, I'm not asking for my theory to be taught as scientific. I think it's obvious to any four-year-old what the same kind is. Put a dog and a banana and a wolf together, and they'll say the banana is not the same kind. So exactly where the line is, I don't know, and neither do you know exactly where the line is for species, or what that word means even. 21 different definitions so far. I have that put together in a PowerPoint for later. So was that the same question up on, you put a new one up?
Oh, yeah, no, if you wanted to see I think it was the spider one we were still on.
The spider, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It depends on the word related. I think they all have a common designer. And I would just be wildly guessing that God made 5,000 kinds of spiders and now there's 12,000. By man's classification, we have decided to more finely divide them. Somebody could say there's one group called automobiles. Somebody else could say, oh no, there's 2-door and 4-door. Oh, there's front engine, rear engine. Oh yeah, there's gas and diesel. We could start dividing them up into all sorts of categories. Or you could lump them all together and just call them automobiles. So it's just semantics is all it is. Go ahead.
Okay, appreciate it there. Ken, thank you for the question. Next question comes in from Redefine Living. This time it is for you, Mark. And Redefine Living asks, question for Mark. Have you observed a virus entering the genome and going from non-function to beneficially functional?
Yeah, of course we've observed a virus entering the genome. As I said, that HIV is a retrovirus, right? So we've observed that tons of times. Have we observed it from going from non-function to beneficially function? I'm not sure about that one. As I said, I'm not a geneticist, but what we have done is taken an inactive virus and turned it back on. So we have sort of done it the reverse way round. We can see the changes within these viral elements by studying them with organisms that have a close relationship to the other organisms. But we may have, I'm not sure about that one, Redefine Living. I would have to look that up. But have we observed the virus entering the genome? Absolutely. Have we observed the mutation happening in that? Absolutely, yes.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for the response. Kent, floor is yours if there's anything you'd like to add.
Well, he says with great confidence, absolutely, we've observed it. I'd like to see the scientific evidence for that. To go from non-functioning to beneficially functioning, I don't think that's been observed. We do know that they're already there. We do know the ERVs are already in the genome and they already have a function. We know they have a function. We know they're there. We do not know they entered sometime in the past, and we do not know they used to be non-functioning. That would be imagination. So I don't think we've observed it, but if we have, to go from to beneficially functional, I'd like to see the paper and the evidence for that. I don't believe it exists.
Okay, thank you, Kent. And Mark, question was for you. You can have the last word.
Yeah, so as I said, we've observed the HIV virus entering the genome, and that's been well observed. If you don't think so, then I have no idea what you're looking at. I mean, I do have a paper right in front of me about the HIV virus integrating itself in host DNA. As I said, I'm not sure that we've directly observed a viral segment going from non-active to beneficial. I don't think we've directly observed that, but we have observed the enzyme making the LTR cuts in it. I would have to look that up. As I did say, I'm not going to claim otherwise. But that's not the only way we can know that they are viral segments. And there is no argument that there are viral segments. Even Kent's own papers say that it happened, and he's presenting citations for papers that say that it happened. So, you know, I trust Kent's citations.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. This one comes in from Scarlett Dobbs. Question for Kent. I'd like to know the creationist argument for de-evolution and conditions such as Unner-Tan syndrome that clearly demonstrate evolution versus through atavism.
You'd like to know my argument for de-evolution. I'm not familiar with the Unner-Tan syndrome. I'd have to look that up, but have them define that question if they'd like. So is this an improvement, an increase in genetic complexity and new information? I defy anybody to show me any mutation or any evolution where new information is added. To go from a protozoa to a human, you got to add a whole lot of information. Protozoa don't have lungs, don't have bones, don't have circulatory system, don't have heart, don't have brain. There's a lot of information that has to be added to make all those things. I'm not aware of any of it being added, no evidence for it being added anywhere. Do a time lapse on a protozoa, turn it into something, create a lung or a gizzard or a liver or something, you know, it doesn't happen. So I couldn't answer the question. I'm not sure. I'll Google it. I'll find out here and find out more about exactly what they're asking, this syndrome they're talking about. But so let Mark handle that one and I'll look it up right now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Mark, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
Yeah, so okay, so de-evolution doesn't exist. There's no such thing. What they're describing as de-evolution is just evolution, and they sort of go, well, the mutations are detrimental and they'll pile up. And no, well, the detrimental mutations are removed because the organisms don't survive. So their idea of de-evolution is just a misunderstanding, again, of evolution. So quickly, I had to look this up, I must admit, but Unner-Tan syndrome is a genetic syndrome that causes quadrupedalism, basically the person to crawl on their hands and knees or walk on all fours, basically. And that atavism is like the demonstration, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a demonstration of ancestral traits, like a human born with a tail kind of thing, which does happen. And this shows that, because Kent was like, we don't walk on our hands and feet, but you do have this atavism which reverts back to a human having a quadruped gait or a knuckled gait, which he described doesn't happen. So I believe that's what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Kent, you get the last word if you'd like it. Question was for you.
Sure. Unner-Tan syndrome is a mental retardation, disequilibrium syndrome, a collection of recessive single-gene disorders in which affected individuals show quadrupedalism. They crawl on all fours, okay? Mental retardation, cerebral development defects. So if that's how evolution works, that's examples of losing something. And going back to crawling on all fours is not evidence that men used to crawl on all fours. You start off as a baby crawling on all fours. It's a stage of development. I think if that's evidence of how we change from a protozoa to a whale, you might have that disease yourself, mental retardation, to believe that. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, steady on, Kent. Jeez.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question, and we'll have to start winding down now with one or two more questions as we are about to hit the 2-hour mark. So I appreciate the time that both Mark and Kent has given us for this debate. So CR family, thank you so much. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this goes back to a question earlier on the chromosome 2 fusion, and CR family is asking, okay, it's a question for Mark. He specifies at the end, isn't the fusion site a functional component or an active promoter of the first intron of the DDX11L2 gene? Do you disagree? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so I don't think I know enough about genetics to answer that question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the DDX11L2 gene does. The fusion site, a functional component, an active. Can you clarify, Donnie? Do you understand that one?
Well, I think he's saying the gene that overlaps the fusion site, that gene is called the DDX11L2 gene, and he's saying that the fusion site, or the purported fusion site, is an active promoter for that gene, basically, that overlaps it.
Yeah, I don't think I know enough about genetics to answer that one. I'm sorry, CR family. I do know a few people I could ask, so I will take that down and investigate into it. That's not a problem. I'll probably ask Dr. Dan is probably the best person to ask for that one.
Okay, Mark, I appreciate it. CR family, thanks for the question. Kent, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not familiar with that gene either. How many genes are there? Trillions and trillions. So I don't think anybody knows about all of them. So I have nothing to add to that. No.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for that. And I'm going to pick one last question that is somewhat related to the topic. Then we're going to wind it down because we're coming at 2 hours. I got a lot of questions about the age of the earth and the flood and things like that, but it's not necessarily the topic. So we're going to have to skip those. Actually, I do see this one, logical, plausible, probable. He sent in a bunch of super chats announcing that he's got an after show that is going to kick off as soon as this debate ends. He says, related to Iraq, discuss in dumpster fire after show. So that'll kick off right after this final question. Okay, Paper Bag Man asked question for Mark. Which evolved first, the male or the female?
Female.
Okay, short and sweet, Mark. Appreciate it. Kent, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
Did he say the male evolved first? Is that what he said?
No.
Female, I think.
Oh, female evolved first. Okay. So was this asexual or sexual reproduction? That's pure imagination, Mark. Pure imagination. You can believe that if you want. My Bible teaches very clearly God created the male and female. I think the male and female, I'm doing a whole series every Friday night on Kent Hovind Official on how to make babies. Making babies, different animals and plants, the way they do it is stunning in its diversity and complexity. And if you believe the ability to make babies for an oak tree or a human or a giraffe or a woodpecker happened by chance, you need psychological help. It had to be designed. But you guys so badly want to not give credit to the designer. You want to give credit to your religion of evolution and your billions of years can do anything. Okay, you do what you want. But I would say they were both created simultaneously. It's not going to work any other way.
Okay, appreciate it. Mark, question was for you. You get the last word.
Yeah, so with the chromosomal changes between men and women have a double X chromosome and men have XY. So it stands to sort of reason that the X chromosome did exist first, as the egg is essential, and that that would suggest that the modern female was the first to develop rather than the male, and perhaps there was some other way of fertilization that was not that then developed, kind of thing. So in a way you could say, because male and female are sort of products of sexual reproduction, but you could say in a certain way that asexual reproduction only involves the female, like the egg, basically. So that's why I say the female.
Okay, thank you. And that wraps up the audience Q&A. So great debate, Kent and Mark. Thank you so much for this round 3 showdown before we shut it down for the night. And I'm sure many are heading over to Logical, Plausible, Probables channel for the after show, where John here says, share your thoughts and take part in a trivia contest. Ooh, sounds fun. So let's have some final words, final thoughts. Again, to the debaters, thanks for being here. Mark, let's start with you. Again, thanks for your time, and final words, final thoughts.
Yeah, just this is kind of a little disappointing. There's been a whole load of nothing burger from Kent during this debate, nothing at all, while I've brought sort of scientific progress and the scientific evaluations of genetics and all of these viral segments. I think Atheist Junior may be having an after show on his channel. I'm not sure, I haven't talked to him, but he was doing an after show for the original video, so he may be doing one afterwards as well. I'll head over there and see. So I think I've presented pretty clearly the scientific evidence on ERVs for evolution. I think it's very reasonable to think that some kind of creator wasn't involved tinkering with mutations in order to make it fit a model that we'd made 150 years earlier that Kent seems to think magically happened. So and of course, Kent won't debate his own creationism because he just won't. But I've had a lot of fun. So thank you so much, Donnie, and Mr. Hovind. I've had a blast. It's been awesome. So thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for watching, everybody in the audience. Do like and subscribe to Donnie here. He deserves it. He works hard. So please do that. And do come across and check out my channel if you do like debates and atheist perspectives. I do interviews, debates, and sort of commentaries where I can from a secular humanist point of view. Thank you.
Thank you for those final words, final thoughts. It looks like there might be 2 after shows, John's channel and also Atheist Junior's. Okay, Kent, thank you so much for being here doing this. And final thoughts, final words.
Well, tell Atheist Junior to debate me again on your channel, Donnie. What's the problem here? He's refused, hasn't he? Haven't you been asking him? Come on, AJ, you're real brave behind your keyboard. I'll take you on in the debate. Final words. God made the world. He owns it. He makes the rules. We're all guilty of breaking his rules, and we're going to be punished, or you better find somebody to take your place. Jesus Christ came and died on that cross to pay for your sins. I've accepted his payment. If you don't want to, that's your choice. The devil's a liar. He wants you to believe this stupid evolution religion, and it is nothing but a religion. Nobody's ever seen it. The Bible warned us, beware lest anybody spoil you through philosophy. Evolution is a philosophy at best, and it's vain deceit. God doesn't lie. Satan is a liar. God has eternal life. He wants to give it to you. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. I'd like to see everybody give their heart to the Lord and get saved. If you want to talk to me personally, probably tomorrow. I'm going to bed. But 855 Big Dino, extension 3. Take calls all day long. Come visit Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. And those of you that have the SpongeBob imagination to believe billions of years will solve the problem, it won't, okay? First of all, you can't have billions. And secondly, if you did, it would just get worse. So I wish you guys weren't so blinded and you'd see the common sense. Look, cows make cows, dogs make dogs, no exceptions. Almost maybe like the Bible says it's right, to bring forth after their kind. Maybe that's why he said it 24 times, hoping somebody would get it. Okay, thank you for having me. Thank you, Mark, for doing this again. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Kent. You get yourself some sleep. Mark, it's morning for you, so I'm sure you're about to have some fun at the after show. And to the live chat, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for all the engagement, and thank you for all the questions. Standing for Truth is out.